Hey everybody, welcome to Group Week. My name is John, and what we want to do on these weeks is that we believe that the best way for you to live is the way of Jesus, to love each other, and love the world. And we think that what you're doing right now is one of the best ways to help you actually live that out. What we do when we come together for our live Sunday services, which we do twice a month. We think that's a really helpful tool, but you being together with a group of people and discussing and asking questions and just kind of going through the whole process is one of the best ways to help you grow. So way to go you for taking the time to be a part of a group today. And so in a second, we're going to talk about a text, but before we do that, part of the way of living the way of Jesus is living in deep relationships with other people. So we want you to take a few minutes to better get to know the people that you're sitting around and for them to get to know you. And so to do that, we want to discuss 3 questions. First question, share what you're grateful for. What has been going on the last couple days and you were just thankful for it. Secondly, what's something that maybe from the last few days, or maybe as you're looking forward to the next couple days, what's something that's just been really challenging? What's something that maybe you're pretty stressed about? Go ahead and share that if you would with the people around you. And then lastly, take a few minutes to share what we talked about 2 weeks ago. What did you do with that, if anything? How has that been going? What we talked about a couple weeks ago is we talked about the idea that we want to do good things, but we don't want to do good things just because we have to do them, because there's a way in which you can do good things that you're doing it out of obligation, out of guilt, maybe even out of shame, and that's really not a helpful way to do good things. But we want to do good things like going to church, reading the Bible, praying, serving, trying not to sin, building deep relationships. We want to do those things not because we have to. We want to do them because we want to. And especially, we want to do them because of love. So we talked about that 2 weeks ago. And so share, how's that been going? Maybe talk about maybe some of the good things that you've been doing over the last few days. And why did you do those good things? Did you do those because you felt like you had to? Or did you do them because you wanted to? Did you do them out of love? So take a few minutes, pause me, and share with the folks that you're with what you're grateful for, challenges, and then how's it going with what we learned last time we were together. So discuss. All right, what we want to do next is today we are going to be looking at a section of scripture, Matthew 5:21 through 26. And so this is a part of a sermon that Jesus taught 2,000 years ago, and we're going to be looking at this the whole sermon for the whole fall and into the winter. And this sermon is so great because if you're interested in living the way of Jesus, then this is maybe the clearest teaching that Jesus has of here's what it looks like if you want to follow me. And so what you're going to do in your group is you're going to have someone read that part of Scripture. And so have someone read off their phone or paper Bible, Matthew 5:21 through 26. And then have someone else in your group paraphrase it. And so put it in their own words and just kind of, hey, here's what I heard, here's what I remember from it. And the rest of you can kind of help piece that together too. And then we want you to answer a few different questions, discuss a few different questions. First, discuss what jumped out at you from the passage, what kind of stood out, what really jumped out. Secondly, what does what you just read, what you just heard, what does that tell us about God? And then, what does it tell us about people? So spend some time discussing all those questions. And then we want you to discuss these questions. What would it look like if you were to apply that to your life this week? What would it look like if you were to, kind of put, boots on the ground, if you were to, really make, action with what you just learned? What would that look like this week? And maybe even you can write what we call an I will statement. So based off of what I just heard, going forward this week, I will do what? And you can discuss that. And then lastly, talk about is there anything that you guys just talked about that you think would be really helpful to share with someone else? Is there someone that you work with, a neighbor, family, friend? Is there someone else that you can pass on what you just learned? And so that's what you're going to do in your group. But before you do that, I just want to give you a couple different insights about what you're going to read today. So the first thing I want to let you know is you're going to see in this passage, and actually you're going to see in the next couple that we're going to look at on these group weeks, that Jesus starts off by saying this statement of, "You have heard it said, but I say." And I just don't want you guys to miss just like the ridiculousness of that statement. That 2,000 years ago when Jesus said that, there would have been like a in the crowd. Because when Jesus says, "You have heard it said," who said it was a guy named Moses about 1,500 years ago. And where Moses kind of said it from is he heard it from God and he wrote it down on a tablet that we call the 10 Commandments. And so Jesus is saying, you have heard it said from, that guy Moses, you heard it said on the 10 Commandments, but I say to you, which is Jesus' way of saying, okay, it's like what Moses said is important, what the 10 Commandments said is important, but what I'm going to say to you is even more important. Which just goes back to what we talked about last week, if you were part of our live service, that Jesus is regularly claiming that he is supreme over all, that he is king over all, and that he is righter than anything else. And so Moses was good, Moses was right, but I'm even better. I'm even more right than that. And that's a big thing for what we're going to look at in all these weeks, because one of the questions that we should always ask is, okay, all right, to what extent should I follow Jesus? And why should I follow Jesus? Should I really do everything that Jesus said? And who is this Jesus, to tell me how I should live my life? And that's something for you to figure out in your own life, of how much trust and faith you're going to put in Jesus. But what Jesus claims about himself is that he is the most right person that ever lived, and the way that he said to live is the best way to live, and he backs it up because he claims that he was the Son of God. And this is just another one of those moments where he makes that statement, and the folks in the audience would have been like, that's a big deal, and I think it should be a big deal to us too. Second thing is that in this passage, and again in last one we talked about in community group, and we're going to talk about for the next few, there's a big thing about the idea of like motivation, is that what Jesus seems to be after is not just behavior modification. He's not just trying to get us to like change the way we act. The goal isn't to get to the end of the day and be like, okay, did I kill anybody today? No. Did I commit adultery today? No. Did I build an idol today? No. And as long as I didn't do all those things, it's like, okay, good. I'm a good person, and I guess God likes me. What Jesus is after is something way bigger. He doesn't want to just change like our outward behavior. He wants to actually change what's going on the inside of us. And so when you guys get to the part where you're talking about your I will statement today, if I can give you a little bit of a push, the I will statement, we're talking about anger today, shouldn't just be, okay, this next week I'm going to try not to be angry. This next week I'm going to try not to lose my cool. This next week I'm going to try not to kick the dog. It should be, I'm going to try to address some things internally so that just who I am on the inside is becoming different, so that when I get in those situations, I just don't want to kick the dog. I just don't want to lose the cool. I'm just finding it, I'm just not being as angry as I used to be, because something on the inside of me is actually changing. It's not that I'm just like trying not to be angry. Another thing you should know about this text is Jesus is going to talk about 3 different ways that we can kind of lose our cool or be bitter with other people. And so the first one, he's going to talk about being angry with people. And a lot of us know what it looks like to be angry with people, and we all have our own stories, and you can share those in your group. But he's going to use a couple other ones that we might not be as familiar with. He's going to talk about the idea of this word raka. And by raka, he's meaning like calling someone like an empty head. It's the idea of calling someone unintellectual. That like anyone who would say something like that, I mean, they must be so dumb. Anyone who would do something like that, they must just be an idiot. Anybody who would vote for somebody like that, they just must not be using their brain at all. And maybe you've heard someone use those kind of accusations before. Then the other one he's going to use is the idea of a fool. And by fool in this context, he's really meaning someone who's acting immorally. And so, everyone knows that people in those neighborhoods, everyone up there is greedy. All those people are snobby. All those people are like that. Or maybe all the people that struggle with that kind of a sin, like that kind of a sin is really bad. I mean, all of us sin, but my sins aren't that bad. But like those people's sins, those are the really immoral people. And in all of these that Jesus is going to talk about, they all have an air of superiority, of like self-righteousness. They're like, I'm angry because I'm right and you're wrong. I'm angry at you because I'm smart and I've really thought about this, but your standpoint is dumb. I'm really angry at you because I'm on the moral high ground here, but you're really immoral. And Jesus is going to have some stuff to say about that, and you guys can discuss. Two other questions that I think will help you guys as you're going into your discussion. First question is this: is it possible to have a great, loving relationship with Jesus and at the same time have some sort of real bitterness and anger against someone else? Is it possible to say, I go to church and I love Jesus and me and Jesus are really, really good, but my dad and I am so ticked at, and my neighbor, my coworker, if I'm is it possible to sing songs in church where you're just I love you, Jesus, and then on the other side, you're on the way home having these imaginary conversations about this person that you just would love to tell off? Is that even possible? And then second question, have you ever seen a conflict, or maybe you've been a part of a conflict and it just blew up? That blew up the company, blew up the marriage, blew up the friendship, blew up the family. It just, got way out of hand. You go back to the very beginning, before, and oftentimes it was a small altercation. It was a little thing that kind of sparked that then blew up into this big thing. And have you ever had a moment where you thought, man, if we could just go back to that part, if they just could have if we could have got everybody in a room and we could have talked about it then. If I would have gone back and said sorry when I had the chance before it blew up, could we have actually avoided this whole thing? So hopefully that's a little bit of a help to get you guys kickstarted in your conversation. Enjoy. I want to become a less angry person. And again, it's not that I don't want to just try to be less angry. I want to actually just become a person of hope and love and joy and just actually transformed on the inside. And I pray the same thing for you. So have a good time in your groups, discuss, and let's grow together. See you soon. Bye.